Family disputes can make us feel isolated and vulnerable. Maybe you're going through a divorce or a legal dispute about your kids. Perhaps you've spent hours on Google or have even posted anonymously on Facebook to see what others have to say. But are you getting the actual information and support that you're looking for? Our podcast, Legal Lounge, aims to dispel misinformation and downright bad legal information to empower anyone with questions about their family, their children, their finances, their marriage, and the law. As a team focused exclusively on family law matters, we aim to help listeners not only with the information they need, but also with the hope that their situation has a solution. Short disclaimer, please note this podcast is for educational purposes only, and the information should not be relied upon as legal advice or for legal purposes. Welcome back to the Legal Lounge. I am continuing my conversation with my mom, the Madre. If you haven't listened to part one of this two-part series, go ahead and check out that episode first. Otherwise, here we go with the rest of our conversation. Yeah.
The abuse did not stop.
Yeah. That led to my incident, similar to the incident with my brother, where it turned a tide. So I'll tell the story.
Yes.
Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong.
You tell the story. You remember
I'll
it well.
tell it from my perspective. So it was a random evening. I was, I believe, 11, and I believe it was around February, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And my mother was doing laundry. My father was watching a boxing match. He really liked boxing. And as I do what I do, I am that nerd that's reading a book. I remember my room actually in this house because I had gotten pictures of the planets and spaced them out on two walls in a distant, similar, obviously a much smaller ratio than our actual universe, much smaller for my two walls, and distance out the planets in ratio-wise how they are in real life. So you have your cluster of the sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Earth really close together. And then Neptune, or there was Neptune, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. Pluto was still technically a planet at this point, but they later found that it was a moon. Anyway, so I had them space out on my wall. I loved computer games. Right? Because
That's right.
we did have one of the first laptops ever built in our household because of, my biological father's job. So I was building websites by the age of 10. Like I was very techie, reading books, studying science, studying all of this. And I remember that night specifically because you screamed like I had never heard you scream. And I remember racing down because my bedroom was all the way on the top floor. I had to go all the way down to the first floor. And I remember seeing you in the laundry room over clothes bleeding.
I was drenched.
And he was walking away with an iron mug. And I went to check on you first. And I saw you. You didn't realize you were bleeding. You weren't even in pain. You were in shock. Yeah. I remember coming out of the little laundry room, going around the corner into the office because our office was off of that living room space, and confronting him saying, "What did you do to my mom?" And that's when he threw me down, grabbed me by my hair, and dragged me up the flights of stairs up to the second floor. And he slammed the door because there was a door to that room.
Yes, there was.
And I remember getting back up. Such a ballsy little kid. I got back up. I went back down the stairs because I was like, no one's going to keep me from my mom. I went back into that room. At this point, he had sat back down to watch his boxing match, went and grabbed you and guided you up the stairs to the kitchen so we could start treating your wounds. And I remember that because that whole incident for me was similar to my brother's incident that you mentioned earlier, the breaking point. That was that man in that room was no longer my father. That was it for me. And I remember turning to the phone And I said, okay, we're going to call police again because we had in the past. We'll do it again. And you said no. And you said no because he will just come back as he always does. He may cut off the funds to our financial resources that we had.
And they would take you.
And you were scared that they would take me away from you because of the pattern of abuse that had occurred. On top of the fact that he had threatened that to you multiple times. Right?
Yeah.
And so I remember cleaning your wound and I was like, fine, gotta follow what mom says. And we took you up to the bedroom. I remember this because Bernadette had given you a disposable camera that you had under your bed because she had told you, she basically had given you the getaway kit manual that if anything happens again, you take pictures with this disposable camera because you need evidence for the courtroom, which we had learned at this point.
Right.
And you had a change of clothes in that bag. You had a change of clothes for me. You had copies of all the important documents. And you had that disposable camera. We took out the disposable camera and we took pictures. And I remember this because I don't know if it was pre-stamped or not, but you took that disposable camera and you mailed it to Bernadette. We didn't even develop them in North Carolina. You're still in shock as we were going. And I also remember you telling me, don't let me fall asleep.
Yeah.
Because the injury was so severe, you were still bleeding, that if you fell asleep while it was still bleeding, you were scared you wouldn't wake up.
I still have the scar.
Yeah. I remember that. We finally had pictures, which we didn't always have pictures.
Yeah.
And that was integral in the years to come.
Yes.
And I remember police weren't called that night. But I just remember after that day looking at him, I'm like, I can't believe we're living with this animal. I remember that. I was 11 years old and I was like, this thing is disgusting. And I was referring to my biological father. I remember that. And I remember you trying to keep the peace, trying not to press his buttons, trying not to do anything that would set him off again. But I also remember, I think this is when more incidents were occurring. It was within a few weeks, I remember having a conversation with you where I was like, we have to be done.
Mm-hmm.
This is not good. And and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that incident combined with me telling you that I'm done, you felt empowered to actually pursue another domestic violence order of protection.
Yes.
And so you actually filed.
Mm-hmm.
You filed on your own.
On my own.
Yep. And this is, again, before internet, before all the tech they have in place. So you had to go yourself to the courthouse.
Personally. Yeah.
And file it.
Yeah.
And he was served with the paperwork. And you got an ex parte. So you got the temporary restraining order against him. Right. And I remember you picking me up from some activity. Maybe it was school. And we were coming home together. And we come home. And he had already been served. It was that quick, actually, which is kind of crazy now that I'm an attorney, for it to be served within the same day. And he had put padlocks, you know, those old shed locks where there's a little part that you then put a master bolt on or master lock on.
Yeah.
So he had put padlocks on all the doors. He had nailed all the windows shut to our household. And there was a note on the front door that said, I know you filed this protective order against me. I'm going to lock you inside and burn it to the ground, or something along those lines. Do you remember the note?
No.
That was what the note said. I think it was too much for you. All I remember you doing then, which I was very thankful for, is you called the police. Cary Police Department responded. Shout out to Cary Police Department.
Officer Gasperson.
Officer Gasperson and Officer Doyle.
And Officer Doyle.
So Officer Gasperson was the first officer to respond. Officer Doyle either came at the same time or very soon thereafter.
Yeah.
And they both looked at the note. They investigated the house. And they're like, yeah, you're not staying here tonight. Mm-hmm. And we're like, nope. So thankfully, our neighbor across the street, wonderful couple. I think they had 5 boys. It was kind of crazy. It was like a household of boys. I remember this. We stayed at their home. And the police, Gasperson and Doyle, told us, if he returns, which we suspect he will, you call us.
And a little bit before that,
Yeah.
I didn't want to stay in their home.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back home.
Yeah.
I said, no, my daughter needs to sleep in her room.
Mm-hmm.
And Officer Gasperson said to me, no, you're going to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that went across and spoke with the family
Mm-hmm.
to let us stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had gotten a case about a week before, similar to my case, and she stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came back at the next call, she was dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he said to me, no.
Yeah. Officer Gasperson would not
Yes.
allow it. Yep.
Officer Gasperson said, no,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going back home.
Yep.
Not with your daughter. No.
Mm-mm. And so we stayed at that neighbor's house, and he returned. My biological father returned, and we knew he returned because we lived in a cul-de-sac. We could see from this house, from the kitchen window, who was coming in and out of the cul-de-sac. And oh yeah, Pontiac Trans Am has a pretty loud noise to it.
Yes.
Just so you know. I have to laugh because either you laugh or you cry. And I'd rather laugh. He came back. It was like 1:00 in the morning. I remember this because one of the boys played water noises when he fell asleep, and it always made me pee. And I think I peed like 5 times that night. I don't think I told you that. Either way, I was up around 1:00 in the morning, hear the car, we call police. Officers Gasperson and Doyle come back out, specific for our case. They go. They actually bring up backup because I remember there were at least 3 or 4
That's
cars, right? You remember that? Because you could see the lights.
That's right.
You could see the lights.
I remember
for the
that now.
whole
Yes.
It was like cops. Anyway. And they surrounded the house. They knocked on the door. And I remember seeing because we were, I think, on the lawn at this point, the lights going out in the house. And they're like, sir, please come out. We know you're in there. His car was there, right? And, it's a cul-de-sac. The back of it is like acres of forest. So it's literally had nowhere to go. And the cops had to break in. They searched the house and they found him. I have to laugh at this. They found him crouching in the downstairs office closet, hiding like a coward. And I will say this confidently, like the coward he was. And they arrested him, not only for violating that DVPO, but also for the damage and threats he made to the house. So he was arrested. I think he spent more than one night in jail for that one.
I think so. Yeah, because they notified me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I remember they called me.
Yep. And it was interesting because Gasperson and Doyle both checked in with us for years thereafter.
For years after that.
Doyle actually, I think we're all connected on LinkedIn, just throwing it out there. But Doyle actually went to the FBI and became a special agent. And
Did he really?
And when he was in the FBI, he actually emailed me because he knew I went to GW. And he was like, if you ever need anything, I'm like, down the street.
Nice.
Right?
I do have to mention about the incident shortly after that, about the weekend after, or maybe that following weekend that occurred. He pulled in that Joe was home on leave.
Yeah.
Joe came home on leave, and he pulled in with a 12-pack of beer because he had called Joey saying that they were gonna have some beers that night, but he never told Joey what took place. Joey got home. I remember Joey saying, "Hey, Mom," and you told Joey what happened. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that, but I could see me doing that.
You told Joe what happened.
And I was like, absolutely not.
I had said to you, don't tell Joe.
And I was like,
because
no.
I knew that Joe was going to get into it with his father. But you told him anyway.
Yep.
So I said to Joe, don't say anything to him. Don't say anything. And Joe said to you, Theresa, go get dressed. And you went up the stairs, you got dressed. And as he's walking into the door with the beer, the 3 of us walked out.
Yeah.
And he took us, remember, it it was like a sports bar
Yeah,
type
yeah,
of. Remember
Yeah.
that you wanted to sit on the counter.
Yeah.
And Joey said, "No,
too young.
you're too young."
I can't drink yet. I was only 12. 11, 12.
And at that point, that's when my son said to me, "Okay, the lock's going to be changed," which he did, and he disconnected the phone.
Yep. That didn't stop my biological father though, because he then came back, and I remember we were in the dining room, and he was banging on the door, and we didn't let him in, and we're like, "There's a protective order anyway," so we had to call the police again. Gasperson and Doyle, fantastic. Constantly having to rearrest him, spent a couple of days in jail. I mean, this man, he had so many violations of a DVPO being charged against him. I mean, I'm sure it was multiple. I'm sure his criminal record just in Wake County is a novel. And yeah, I remember we were gone one time, and that's when he sliced the...
No, when I woke up the following morning.
When the following morning after him banging on the door.
Yes.
My mom had put one of those old school steering wheel locks on, life lock.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my father had broken into the car.
Well, he had the key.
Oh, he had the key.
Yeah.
He was still broken because you were distributed the possession of the
right
car in the protective order.
Right.
Went in, saw the steering wheel, and took off the life lock from the steering wheel. Yes. So then...
And took the car.
So we had to call police again. We had to call the police so many times. Yeah. It was crazy.
The police found it. And brought it back home. But the police said, you can't drive the car this like this. So the next day, or that following weekend, Theresa and I went up to the Honda dealer.
Oh, that's right.
And traded the car in. And I told them, I want a simple Honda. Give me whatever you want to give me for the Blazer. Yeah. In the condition as is.
Okay, so right after he banged on the door, because we had changed the locks at this point, but the protective order was in place, he went to the Blazer, sawed off the life lock from the steering wheel, and then you were forced to trade that car in for a new car, and you went and got your first Honda Civic.
Yes.
And you've been getting Honda Civics ever since.
Yes.
So after filing the domestic violence order of protection in North Carolina, we obviously went to the hearing to get the 1 year, and that was granted, right?
Yes.
And so a DVPO was granted for your protection as well as for my protection.
Yes.
And it was interesting because this was actually when the law only allowed for 1 year renewals. So we actually had to go back every year while I was in high school and throughout high school.
Yes, we did.
And then you also moved forward with the actual divorce proceeding.
Yes.
Which I feel was drug on, for 5+ years?
5+ years.
Yeah.
And also the judge sent both of us to counseling.
Yep.
And that's where I started going to Interact in North Carolina.
Yeah, Interactive Wake. So Interactive Wake is the domestic violence nonprofit organization of Wake County. It's in Raleigh. Big supporters of that nonprofit. A similar one here in Mecklenburg County would be Safe Alliance. And these organizations provide invaluable resources. And I know they Interact provided a number of resources to you. And in fact, this is not your first debut in media. You actually helped create an awareness video for Interact way back when.
That's correct.
Yeah, I remember that.
About that.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but yeah. You were on the big movie screen, actually.
Yeah, I do thank the judge for that.
Yeah.
Because I was really never aware of such resources. I really was not really aware of all the rights that we women have, and it all stems back again to your basics, lack of education. At that time, it was really lack of resources in comparison to what we have today.
Yeah. Yeah, the level of resources have definitely increased. in part due to organizations like Interact, but also the awareness on what families have gone through, like our story. And so going back to the timeline of events is what I'll say is we were in and out of court for a number of years. And when I say my biological father violated the DVPO multiple times, it was multiple times. I remember on more than one occasion, there was even that incident when I was approached at my high school, the McDonald's near my high school, in the parking lot by a person associated with my biological father who would not be there unless he was there, which was very scary. And that was kind of the threat imposed on me directly. And so even though my high school had a copy of the Domestic Violence Order of Protection, even though the safety officer, which is an officer that we have on campus in schools here in North Carolina, knew about it, even though we had the whole of Cary police knowing about it, and I went to Cary High, he still violated the order, and violations continued in almost a way where he knew how to violate it, but not necessarily get convicted or receive the full ramifications of a conviction. To this day, there are still warrants out for his arrest for violations of the DVPOs that we had over the years. He just hasn't been arrested because he hasn't stepped a foot back in North Carolina, at least to our knowledge. In high school, it was very much, for me, a situation of almost having to be two-faced. Because I shouldn't say almost, it was. I had to testify in court when I was the only one available to provide certain information to the court, especially during the custody battle, because there was a lot that you didn't know about at the time that needed to be shared with the judge, as well as criminal charges that were being brought for the different DVPO violations of on his part, right? So that was rough because then I would be in school, which luckily for me became my solace. I came to school and I felt very comfortable using education as kind of like my comfort blanket. And that's where I found comfort to excel in education, excel in my studies, excel in learning new things. I loved history. Didn't really study too much in sciences, but I did like science. English, I never really did well at the spelling tests, but I tried my best. And so outside looking in, I seemed to be a well-adapting teenager to a divorce situation, while internal to our home, and really me and you, because even my brother was not in our house at that point and not really aware of the day-to-day. We were having to deal with court battle after hearing after hearing, and
frivolous motions.
All the motions, and going in and out of the courtroom, and the financial piece was huge because even though he had been this high-paid computer programmer for so many years, he quit his job.
Yes.
He then gets convicted of multiple criminal offenses. And even though it had been litigated, actually, and you can even find the Vieira v. Vieira case up at the Court of Appeals. And unfortunately, simply put, can't squeeze water from a rock, and he wasn't really working or applying himself like he had been. I do remember, I remember one time you got a check from him, one of the rare occasions, and it was $50. And I remember he coming to me and you're like, here's your college fund. We can pay for your whole college. And we shared a laugh because we knew obviously $50 is not going to pay for college, but what can you do? You're either going to laugh or you're going to cry. And at that point, we just had to laugh because he was not going to financially provide for us. And so we went from a standard of living of fancy cars, 3-story house, Broadway shows on Broadway, to rolling pennies, to try to buy groceries.
Yes.
Yep. I still remember the smell of the pennies on my fingertips.
You remember?
But yeah, through middle school and high school, we had to make it work. You worked really hard. You applied yourself full time at your job. At this point, you were with UNC Hospitals.
I was a UNC hospital.
Yeah.
I used to take what was it? I used to finish work, get home, pick you up from school. Mind you, it was 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Bring you home, and then drop you off at home, and then go back to work. To UNC.
Yep.
I did that for quite a while.
Yep.
Because there was only one car.
Yeah, there was only one car. Well, and I also couldn't drive for quite a while.
And you couldn't drive yet.
Because I wasn't of age.
Exactly.
And then there was the point where I was of age to work, but still not to drive.
But not to drive.
Luckily, I got a job across the street at the mall.
Yes.
Cary Town Center, which has now been demolished. And I would once I was able to walk from school, do my homework at the Barnes & Noble, because I only had about 30 minutes after school activities.
Right.
They did have the little cafe there, so I always got the Rice Krispie treat.
Yes.
And then after that, walk from the Barnes & Noble to the mall where I worked, and then you would pick me up late at night once I was able to work.
Yeah.
And we made it work. I mean, there were times when I had to help you cover utility bills and credit card payments and car maintenance costs and all of that stuff. But we made it through.
And when I had to empty out the piggy bank, it was that big bottle. It was Joe's, actually.
Yeah. Yep. And we rolled all those coins.
And the pennies and the quarters.
And we had to make it work. And we did have to size down. The house that we had been living in had to be sold. You couldn't afford it on your own.
And he gave us a hard time about that.
Sure did.
He didn't want to sign it off.
Yeah, but had to sell the house. And we downsized to a condo.
To the condo.
Yep. And that's where I lived at. And luckily I did get my driver's license. I passed that test.
Yes.
And was able to start driving to and from school to alleviate the additional travel for you. Because you worked 30 minutes away from where I went to school. And to think our home was in between where you worked and where I went to school. So it was like you were driving a lot.
A lot. I put a lot of mileage in that Honda.
Yeah, sure did. A little Honda Civic. Sure did. But we made it work. And I think that's a testament, right? That's a testament to, regardless of the turmoils that you are faced, especially when financial circumstances specifically change drastically, there is still, if you have the will, there is a way. And I grew a lot from it. I get it, Ma. I know you feel guilty, because I had to do a lot of adult things a lot younger than you ever intended. On the flip side, I learned a lot of skills early on, time management being one of them.
And yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You taught me how to balance the checkbook.
Oh, I did. Yeah, because I was really good in algebra. I was really good in algebra, actually. I remember that because even my teacher would make fun of me in a good way, because we did the whole balancing of a checkbook like in class. And I remember I'm like, oh, yeah, I know how to do this. And she's like, okay, well, can you show the class? And so I did. And she's like, yeah, you're correct. So everyone, when Theresa is dishing out her millions, she will be writing checks for people. Who would have thought? Now we don't write checks, but yeah,
I still do.
Yeah, you do. Of course you do. It's interesting the number of skills that really both of us had to take on, because at that point you hadn't even written a check. That's how much in control of the finances he was. But on the flip side, we were a powerhouse to be able to make everything work, get all the bills paid in one way or another. And then you sent me off to college. So I got into college. I went to George Washington University up in DC. Go Colonials. Yes, George Washington is our mascot. I know it's very odd. We also have an unofficial mascot, which is a hippo, totally unrelated to George Washington. But if you want the story on that, feel free to email me and we can grab coffee to talk about the hippo. What was nice about GW, and this comes more a factor when I talk about the law school situation, is that GW is a private university, although it was created by an act of Congress, which is very interesting. So it must exist by law, but it is a private university. And what does that mean? It means all the school records and the students that go there are actually private information. And unbeknownst to me, that meant there was a layer of protection that not just anyone could just call and say, hey, is Theresa Vieira going to your school? I didn't realize that that was an issue until I went to UNC Chapel Hill. UNC Chapel Hill is a public university. I didn't realize that that meant that someone could search my name and find out I'm a student there unless there was a specific tag on my student file to make it private. And that's how my biological father found out I was going to Chapel Hill, because the stalking never stopped. He was always trying to find us and harass us. And even though we had all those warrants for his arrest in North Carolina, which I think there came a point where it dissuaded him from being in the state, but it didn't stop him. And so I started law school, and I would say, I want to say within weeks, not me directly, but my dean of student affairs was getting packages from him. And he was directing the dean to give the packages to me or drop them off in my area or in my locker at law school, because he wanted to bring to justice the lies that my mother, IEU, were saying about him and how the courts got everything wrong and that he was never at fault, all this, that, and the other. And so, of course, Dean Smith, it's not the Dean Smith of the basketball legacy at Carolina, but Dean Smith of Chapel Hill School of Law, she called me into her office and she's like, hey, it appears we have a situation. And lo and behold, all those ghosts, if you will, in a way that I was able to, in a way, ignore while I was at GW, just resurfaced. And I remember going through that stack and I got really upset because, like, here I am pursuing a law degree to try to help families and help other people, having to deal with this man again. That's when I learned about the whole private versus public university situation about information dissemination. And Dean Smith was like, well, we got you. And I remember that because I was like, I was so scared because I didn't know if he was going to come on campus. And she's like, we got you. And that was the first time I was like, I feel protection again. And I remember her saying, we're going to figure it out. So first things first, I had to go to the student registrar, make my student account private, meaning if anyone calls, university can't disclose any information. That did actually turn out to kind of be rough because anytime I sent out my transcript to say a job and they wanted to verify it, even that, job couldn't call and ask if I went to university there because this school literally couldn't tell anyone who called. But that was fine. I would rather that and be safe. The school also then put a parking, allowed me to get a parking pass on campus. And so I literally parked right next to the other professors because they were like, we need you as close to the school as possible because if something happens, we need you to be where you can get help quickly. And so, like any university, you have those parking lots that are just further away from the buildings, and they're like, no, we need you closer, which also added a layer of, I feel safer now. I had to find a picture of him. I mean, I hadn't looked at a picture of him. Oh my goodness. I think at least 6-7 years at that point, but I had to get a picture of him because I had to give it to the school so that they could pass it around the school campus police department. So everyone knew how they looked, which had happened to you previously.
Yes.
When you were at UNC Hospitals.
And that's how UNC campus police
were able to identify when he had been on campus.
They identified him and they called my office and they told my supervisor, for me to speak with them. I spoke with them and they gave me his description. And I said to myself, I don't remember giving them a picture. Now I'm putting it together. It was because of the picture you gave. And that's how they were able to identify him, because I hadn't given them a picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was during that time
Yep.
that you were at law school.
Yep. So it's just crazy because
Yeah.
it never stopped.
Yeah.
It never stopped. And there was a component of, I'm scared. What do I do? I remember I called your former family law attorney, Helen. She was out of the Raleigh area. And she's like, well, do X, Y, Z. I only represent clients in Raleigh. You're in Chapel Hill. Okay, that's fine. But I luckily didn't even need to retain an attorney, but I did go to the local magistrate and I pursued stalking charges. And so the very first thing was to issue a cease and desist communication, which I sent via email to him because he had also gotten my law school email address through the public records. And then, filed criminal charges against him. So to this day, there are criminal charges and a warrant for his arrest out of Chapel Hill. I do have to give a nod to UNC Chapel Hill, specifically the police department, my law school, Dean Boger, who was the dean when I was there, and Dean Smith, they all did rally together and say, hey, there is this history of domestic violence and child abuse over one of our own, and we got to protect them. And that they stepped up. They did. And so I luckily was able to finish out my studies without further issue. But when you're in this bubble, if you will, of a constant threat, whether you are talking about it at all at any specific moment or on a specific day, it's still there, right? Yes. There is still, as we sit here today, I'm sure you share this, there is still if he's still alive, there is a slight concern.
Yes, there is. And I remember one of the things that I learned at Interact was when you're in a long-term relationship, as I was married for 27 years. And you break that. Okay, that means you took control. They will never accept that.
Yep, the abusers will never accept that.
The abuser will never accept that. And the only time that you're really, really safe is if one of us dies. The abuser will always want to get back at you.
Yep.
Because he's no longer in control.
Yep.
No matter how many years may pass by. And I've come to feel a little safer since where I live now.
Yeah. Since you've moved.
Right.
And it's interesting because there are a lot of things that have changed, right? There's a lot more resources, a lot more advocacy, a lot more awareness about domestic violence and child abuse. So the information is out there. My criticism, though, is I don't know if people get it. I don't think the average person gets what you just said. And honestly, you know what? In a way, I'm like, you're blessed. I hope you never have to deal with a domestic violence situation. I hope you nor any of your loved ones ever have to have that level of discomfort that we live with every single day because he's still alive. I really do wish only for the exact opposite for everyone out there. Right. But for those who have experienced it, and for those who are experiencing it right now, and for those who their abusers are still out there, there is no fix. I think that's the harshest reality, is there is no fix. There is no legal remedy. There is no judicial remedy. There is no psychological remedy. There isn't. Rather, there's only what we can do for ourselves, right? And yeah, it's a form of radical acceptance. It's a form of radical acceptance of he is still out there. And I check to see if he's in an obituary occasionally. I've searched him.
And I worry about you.
Yeah. I do remember when I told you last minute that I was moving to Egypt for this summer. And I almost feel like you actually felt more comfortable with that because you knew I'd be out of the nation. He definitely can't find me in Egypt, right?
Oh, well.
There's that. I had that concern when I decided to actually start my legal career, right? I remember wanting to become a lawyer by the age of 12, right? Helen inspired me by how much she inspired or helped you and inspired you. And I immediately, like, I knew I couldn't be in Wake County, just because too many triggers, right? Or I shouldn't even say triggers, too many reminders of what I had gone through as a child. However, I want to say in North Carolina, because North Carolina is the system that finally helped you get out and helped us find a form of safety. And I applied to jobs, and I remember moving to Charlotte and getting my first gig, if you will. I started practicing, and I remember one of the tasks of one of my first bosses, if you will, was get your name out there. And I didn't tell her this, but I remember thinking, I'm like, I don't want my name to get out there, right? I don't want, like, what happened when my name unintentionally was put out there by UNC, right? What if I put my name out there? What's going to happen? I don't know anyone in Charlotte. I moved here the second time I visited the city. On the flip side, I was like, wait a second. I am not going to let him dictate what I do with my life. I am not going to give him any more power and control than I want him to have. And I don't want him to dictate how I grow my legal career. I don't want him to dictate what I do when I have made the decision to help other people. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And that was the start of what we've transitioned to today, where not only am I a practicing family law attorney with a reputation behind my name, but I founded Modern Legal in 2020 and 5 years ago, and really pushed the buck even further. And I hope that the prevalence of my team and my firm and my name scare him, because all these allegations that you, my mother, have lied and painted him in a bad light, and that the judicial system is corrupt. I actually know a lot more about the judicial system than he ever will. And part of me is comforted in the fact that now we have gotten so strong that there is just no way he can assert power and control over us anymore. That's not to say that the threat isn't still there, that we have to still be safe. We still have to check our surroundings and be cautious, but we're not going to let him assert any more power and control. We're done with that.
I keep emphasizing education.
Mm-hmm.
I keep emphasizing resources. Today, there is a lot of help out there.
Mm-hmm.
Today, there are tons and tons of resources. Women, young and old,
Mm-hmm.
Need to be aware
Mm-hmm.
of what's happening out there.
Women and men. I'm just
And
going to
men,
point out.
excuse me,
Yep.
excuse
No,
me.
you're good. Yeah.
Women and men, that's correct.
Yeah.
And also, one of the things that I volunteered with Interact, we went to high schools.
Mm-hmm.
This happens in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, unfortunately, a lot of people may not realize,
Mm-hmm.
but there are young girls out there, especially in the high school, where they think that they're in love, and they are traumatized by their boyfriends.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even realize what's happening to them.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about education, yes, bring it on to the high schools.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it on. Let these young people, girls, boys, women, men, realize that this is real
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have to live with this.
Yep.
No one has any right to lay a hand on you.
Mm-hmm.
You have your rights. It's, I mean, I know that it happens with men also, but it seems like, to my knowledge, okay, and you know a whole lot more than I do,
Okay.
but women seem to be so much more vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. As a societal structure, we look toward our women generally more so to be the homemakers, the child care providers, the people that take care of the home, right? And so, especially in a society that also tends to still promote a divide where generally men do make more money than women for doing the same job, and where men are expected to lead a household, that there is this, I shouldn't say expectation of a certain amount of power and control, but there is this, if someone is going to have the final say, it should be the husband. And that we need to change that discourse if we truly want women to be the less vulnerable gender in domestic violence. Caveat, my goal, how about we end domestic violence?
Yes.
How about we end child abuse? Let's start there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
And instead of having a societal norm of someone like the male or the husband or one partner having a final say, how about we encourage healthy discourse? How about we encourage emotional intelligence? How about we encourage compromise? Because when it comes to a household, and maybe this is going to anger some, I don't know. I think a marriage is a partnership.
It is.
Not everybody would agree with that. I think it's a partnership. And when I say partnership, I do actually mean partnership. Mm-hmm. I do mean, hey, we're going to talk it out. And there are some days where I am going to be lacking and I need my husband to step up. And there are going to be days where he's sick and he's down and out and I'm going to need to step up. And there are going to be days where we both look at each other and we're both down and out. And we're going to have to hire someone to pick up the slack, right? But when it comes to those decisions, it can't fall on one person. But if we're in a society where we assume a decision falls on one person, then we are enabling a society then that allows said person, generally the husband or male partner or more masculine authority partner in a relationship, to almost have a hall pass at allowing for power and control to set in. And we never want that. We should never want that.
And I would like to say that word enabling, mm-hmm. that is a key word here. Mm-hmm. Okay, because let's say in my situation, really, I was an enabler. Mm-hmm. I was an enabler every time I took him back and forgave him. Mm-hmm. I became an enabler.
Yeah.
And this is, it's just like enabling an alcoholic.
Yep.
Enabling drugs by, ignoring that there's an issue out there and just, okay, let it be.
Yep.
And so, unfortunately, I never knew at the time about the word enabler, but I very well know it now.
Yeah.
How it is so possible for enabling someone. And again, and I keep emphasizing going back to early years, high school, teach. We need to educate from when we're younger, so that when we decide to make that big step of getting married, we need to know what we may not be getting into.
Yep.
Kind of like the pros and cons.
Yeah. Pros and cons, but also identification factors, right?
Correct.
Identification factors in terms of, okay, what is a healthy relationship? What is not a healthy relationship? What is equality? What is power and control? What is a partnership versus an authoritarianism, right? And that education, agreed. I agree with you 110% that needs to start early. But when you're in it, it's very hard to know that you're enabling it, right? And you think you are, in fact, pursuing and supporting what you have been taught, right? To keep the family together, work on difficult marriages, make things work. Even if you die, make it work, right? And that perspective is definitely shifting, and it has shifted since the 70s. But there still is the enabling factors by, yes, partners that stay in abusive relationships. But I would say, thinking bigger here, court systems that don't hold people accountable, judges that are afraid to send domestic violence abusers to jail, lack of lengthy sentences, lack of awareness of identifying domestic violence as well. And then the enabling of other third parties. His family enabled the abuse when they saw that he broke Joey's nose and did nothing. They also enabled the abuse when he was attacking you, right? And children should not be looked at as the ones to stop the enabling, right? But unfortunately, in our society, they tend to be the ones who are victims, accused of as enablers, because they don't know what else to do. They haven't been taught, to your point.
They are witnesses.
They are the innocent witnesses and victims, the harshest victims of a lot of what goes on. And if we really want to do what's better for our kids, then we really got to take a look in the mirror and figure out, how are we as a society enabling this to happen in the first place? If it's a man-made problem, which it is, then there's a man-made solution, is my perspective. And until we hold people accountable for their actions, whether it's because they are late to an appointment or to school, or the perpetrator of violence against their spouse, unless we hold them accountable, will we actually see change?
That's right.
So before we go, was there anything else you wanted to talk on, Ma?
Only thing I would have to say is that I know that out there are so many innocent people that are living through this type of experience, afraid for their lives. And you don't have to be afraid. Go for help. There is help. My one big help was, aside from my Theresa, and my son really was my lawyer. I learned a lot from Helen. And she was actually about your age when she took my case.
Yeah.
She had never had a case like this.
Well, I don't think the judicial system had a case like this case.
And she took it on.
Yeah.
And yes, I was a difficult client at times. And she would set me straight. And she would say, no, Eileen, we have to go according to the law. And I do believe in our judicial system. And I want to thank them. And I want to thank the wonderful police officers that come to our help when we call them. And I want to thank you, and I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, Ma. Look at this. I'm getting all emotional. So I'm going to leave it with one last little story, because I think it kind of summarizes where our hearts are at. And I say our hearts because this is actually a story of my mom. But I remember I was, I think I had just started practicing law. And I remember you nonchalantly, you were still living in North Carolina, you nonchalantly and said, you're like, when will this domestic violence thing just be a thing of the past? And I remember you were just like very nonchalant about it. And I remember kind of like laughing to myself. I'm like, well, Ma, I mean, I don't think it's going to change overnight. We can hope for it, but it's not going to change overnight. And I remember you telling me, you're like, yeah, it happened again. I was at the gas station. I'm going to get emotional here. Cause this one always gets me emotional. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
You, remember you were on the other side of a gas pump. You were pumping gas into your little Civic. And there was someone on the other side, and you could hear a baby crying in the back seat. And you were pumping your gas, and this person was trying to pump their gas, and it was a woman. She came over to you, and she said, hey, can I get some money? Just a couple of dollars. I just need some money for gas. And I believe she had sunglasses on.
Yes.
And you told her, because you could tell that she had just been battered. Yes. And you told her, where's the pump? And you went over and you put in your credit card.
Yes.
And you filled up the full tank of her car.
SUV.
Her SUV, because she had a big car.
Yeah.
A big SUV. You put your credit card in, you did the full tank. You then went to your wallet and you pulled out every single dollar you had. And you handed her the sack of cash. And you said, go. And don't ever come back. And you take care of your kids. Because they're your priority now.
And she was young. And I hope to this day that she is alive and her baby grew.
I hope and pray she did not go back.
Yeah.
And that she is in a much healthier situation now.
Yes.
Yeah.
That young lady did break my heart. Because I could tell what she was going through.
Yep.
Total stranger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Total stranger.
Yep. And that's how we have to
I pray to God that I made an impact in her life. Just as I feel right now. That I hope I touch someone's heart that is aching because they don't know what to do.
Being here today, I am positive you have touched a lot of hearts. So thank you, Ma, for joining me here.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our discussion. To learn more about me and the Modern Legal team, go to our website, modernlegalnc.com. Or check out the links in our show notes to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can also call us at 704-286-6302. If you have been intrigued by the conversation and would like us to continue our discussions, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.